If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then this, the UK Property Market Stat Show, is for you. My name is Chris Watkin, and each week I have a special guest. This week it's Ben Madden. We'll come to Ben in a second. What we do in this show is talk about what's happening in the property market. Many of you will look at such statistics as the Nationwide or the Halifax or the Land Registry. Problem is, the Land Registry is looking at sales from 5, 6, 7, 8 months ago. The Nationwide and the Halifax are looking for sales a couple of months ago. We're looking at house prices and what happened last week. And by knowing what happened last week, you will have an unfair advantage of knowing what's happening in the property market. So buckle up for the next hour where we do the roller coaster of the UK property market. We are joined this week by Ben Madden, who is the boss man of Fine & Country in West London. And he's also a thought leader in the estate agency industry, and a lot of people look up to him with his initiatives both in and around the industry. He's absolutely fantastic. He's a regular co-presenter on this show and absolutely knows his onions. Thanks for joining me today, Ben.
Thank you for having me, as always, and belated happy birthday, sir.
Well, as you can see, the birthday cards are there, and that's the ladies and gentlemen, that there was no show last week because it was my birthday. Yeah, you've got to have a week off. I do this all in my own time. Yeah, you've got to have some time off, haven't you? So this week we are looking at week 29. We will look at last week's stats as well, which is week 28. But week 29 of the year is Monday, the 15th of July, all the way through and including Sunday, the 21st of July. We'll be looking now, the dust has settled from the general election, so we'll see if that's made any difference. The show itself lasts approximately an hour. The first half talks about what's happening in the UK property market, and then the second half focuses on a town or a city's estate agency population, and we really do deep dive. It's like a Rightmove Plus report on steroids with a couple of rockets attached to it, where we deep dive and look at how mainly estate agency, but a little bit of lettings as well, how each estate agent has performed and letting agent over the last 5.5 years. We look at their market share growth, we look at how many houses they sell versus what they list, how close they get to the asking price. Now, this week, as I said, it's on Cheltenham. Now, if you're not from Cheltenham, you might switch off from that. But if you're an estate agent who is finding it difficult to prove that your fees are worth what you're charging, and you've got other agents who are undercutting you on fee or overvaluing, then we're going to be showing you a piece of software, an independent piece of software that will show you and guide you how to prove that you are a better estate agent and be able to charge those higher fees. So if you're not from Cheltenham, do watch that, because you'll be able to use the same piece of software in your town to prove that you're worth those extra fees. Anyway, Ben, without no further ado, let us go and have a look at those stats. So, as always, we start with listings, and what I do is I'll just spend 60 seconds going through the stats, and then Ben, who has not seen these stats because he likes to run I don't know what's that, but fancy
Coming in hot.
whatever that means. There you go. A bit like a quick fox run in, just bouncing around, good stuff. He likes to see it raw and fresh and just shoot from the hip. So this week we have put onto the market 33,420 properties. And you can see on the chart on the graph now that is very comparable to other week 29s, which again, as I said, is the third week of July, which are hovering around that 30 to 32, 34,000 mark. The average price of a property that has come onto the market is 427,465. Year to date, we have put on 1,027,000 properties, which again, just to give you an idea, is 7.4% further on than the 2023 figure at 956,000, is 7% further on than the more, how can we say, normal years of 17, 18 or 19 on an average. And we're 10.3% ahead of the whole 8 year, than all the years combined, okay? So from 17 onwards, so just to give you a flavour. Okay, this is a particularly important graph, and the white line here, and again, if you are listening to this on the podcast, all of the graphs are available to download if you go to YouTube. pardon me, look at the description, scroll all the way down. There is a little link for the graphs. And also, if you're listening on the podcast, if you look at the description, there is a link to these graphs. And these graphs are all available for everyone to use, both internally and at valuations, but not to publish on social media, because my job is, as I'm a property statistician, I write articles, local and national articles, and I have to hold something back from my paying clients, but I don't mind you using them actually at the appointments to show you know what you're talking about. But this particular graph here is the white line, shows you the number of listings. And you can see that that is dropping and very dropping compared to other years, but I'm sure Ben will do that. I will mention that. So Ben, what's your thoughts on listings?
I mean, I think it's just good news, actually. A little bit more stock this year than last year or over the last 8 years is good for business when demand is up at a higher rate than new stock entering the market. What I find really, really positive is that all the other years that you show on the graph, there wasn't a general election in those years. And we've just been through one, and it seems like the property market didn't skip a beat. Listing levels seem to be completely unaffected or unimpacted by the general election, which I remember 2019, yeah, it was a winter general election, and so very different set of conditions, and we'd been dealing with Brexit for 4 years, but there was an impact, and we had the Boris bounce because of that impact, whereas this year we haven't been impacted. And I think we should take something from that there's a resilience, maybe I also think there's a little bit of the general public who've just had enough of politics, and it was almost a foregone conclusion for a lot of people. But I think that's really, really positive. There's been no dip, no drop off, and the trend line appears to be operating the same as other years, but just at a slightly better level.
Yeah, as you can see this graph here, we haven't included 2020 because obviously things fell off the face of the earth in Q2, and then everything went silly in Q3, so it wouldn't be fair. And again, the listing numbers, we can see the listing numbers here that obviously this is the listing numbers in 21, 22, but I think just compare it to more normal years. And again, can you see here that again, just for everyone's benefit, hasn't seen the show before, these big dips happen every single year. Okay, so these two late dips here are the two bank holidays in May, and they always happen at the same time. And then you have the Easter dip, which again, it just happens due to Easter moving around. Those are all the Easter dips, depending on where it is. So it always dips, but notice, Ben, how listings are now starting to drift off from that late 30s to around the early 30s. And then you should see a slight uptick the week before bank holiday in August. Then she drops off, and then she comes back again as well. So just be aware of that. And what is particularly interesting, which we'll just have a look at in a bit when we look at another graph, is an awful lot of listings come on the market in central London in the first 2 weeks in September. And it really does mess the figures up in terms of the stats, because London prices are so much more that it drives the asking price up. In fact, whilst we're here, I'll just show you what we're talking about here. This particular graph here the red line is the average listing price of all the properties coming onto the market, and the orange line shows you the average asking price of properties that are sale agreed. Okay, so again, there is a good 70 grand difference between these sort of numbers. That doesn't mean that house prices are being dropped by 17 or 18%. Remember, if only two houses came on the market, one was 1 million and one was 500,000, the average is 750,000, obviously. But if only one of them sells, which is the 500,000 one, the average price of a property selling is 500,000. So on that instance, average listing price, 750,000, average asking price of property sold 500,000, and so that's what's happening with these stats. This is not prices are being dropped by 17%, but I promised you about London. So you can see this is March, April, so we're talking March, April, May, June, July 23, and then that uplift there is you lot in London, because you all go away to your Provence and your fancy Tuscany in in Cheltenham and Fulham and Kensington. And I mean that uplift there from 400,000 up to 480 is solely down to London. So we'll find out if that happens again in the first couple of weeks in September.
I think this is going to be a really interesting year, actually, because the last year was a big summer for travel and tourism, because it was almost the first fully unaffected by COVID year of travel. And so holiday companies it was boom time. We had our summer holiday, and I don't mind saying that.
You had 3, mate.
I did not have 3, but we had one. We had more than one, and it was so busy, it made it almost unenjoyable. What I wonder is this year going to be the same, or of people? Is there a bit of normality going to come back to people taking holidays and more people going to go away? In London, as the data shows, lots of people disappear for the summer and then they list in September. I wonder, with the general election having happened when it did, are we going to see more activity in London over the next month that traditionally we don't? It's really going to be interesting. I wouldn't bet either way, actually. We've seen good activity levels in the last few weeks, fairly aligned to last year. But I think there are a load of people that thought they were going to sell before the summer, then the general election got called, and now they're really umming and ahhing about whether it's the right time to go. And we work off somebody else's line, but it's better to sell in isolation than in competition. So it's a really good message for those that are sitting on the fence right now. Why don't you have a go in the summer? Because there's going to be a lot less competition potentially, but there's still buyers out there that didn't buy in the last month. So yeah, interesting couple of months ahead, I think.
Interesting, this graph here, ladies and gentlemen, shows you the stock of properties. Now, what we do, we always get this stat at the end of every month. So the yellow lines are the available properties for sale on the 30th of June every year. And the yellow ones are all the 30th of June. So as I said, we're 2/3 of the way through July, so we haven't got the July figures. But as you can see here, there's 700,524 properties for sale. When you consider, let's ignore 21 and 22, which were not normal years. When you consider that on average, there is around 8 or 9% more homes for sale today compared to your averages of, say, June 18 and May 19. So 700 versus 671 or 673, which is sort of that 8 or 9%. So just be aware of that. And that's, again, a tool you can use in your toolbox when talking to vendors about properties on the market. Let's just go back. Anything on listings before we move on and talk about price changes?
No, let's go on to the price changes.
Okay, so price changes, 23,484 with an average asking price of 406. Remembering that the average price of a property coming on the market for listings is 427, that shows that the lower price properties are having more reductions than the higher price properties. If it was the other way around, that figure would be more than 427. So it shows that the estate agents are reducing their lower to middle price properties more than their big end stuff. And to give you an idea, that is, we are reducing, based on the current stock levels, 1 in 7.04 properties per month. Is 1 in 7 enough in this market? When you consider, and this is a stat UK, is that only 53% of properties that are coming on the market are actually going through to exchange and completion at the moment.
I mean, it's that the age-old question, isn't it? Everyone in agency, I seem to hear, complains about other agents overvaluing. I mean, they're not charging high fees, or they're charging low fees and they're overvaluing. And so you never meet anyone that says, oh, yeah, I do that. Oh, I overvalue and I charge low fees. You never meet anyone that does it. And yet the data shows that either everybody's doing it or a huge chunk of people are doing it. What was the data? First-time buyers, you sent it to me, are spending less now than I think in 1989 on buying a home in London. Because there's a lot of argument around affordability, and that's why properties aren't sticking. But I think buyers are so well informed nowadays, it's not an affordability issue, it's a pricing issue. Buyers know what properties are worth, they have access to the data, and this screams that as an industry, we're still not getting it right.
Right, here are the stats. So the numbers are much higher, the percent, but for the UK, but in London itself, first-time buyers are spending 22.1% less of their take-home pay on mortgage payments today versus 1989. Now, people are going to turn around and say, yes, Chris, but interest rates are 15%. Yes, I know they were, but it doesn't really matter what house prices are, and it doesn't really matter what interest rates are. It really comes down to how much of your take-home pay can you afford on mortgages? And the simple fact is that first-time buyers in London, 22.1%. Now, you could say 1989, that was an awful long time ago. Yes, it was. But if we even go back to 2007, first-time buyers are still spending less on their mortgage payments today than they were just before the crash happened in 2007 in London. And it's even more as we go out into the suburbs.
Which screams that the issue around pricing isn't about budget. It's not a budgetary issue. It's we're overvaluing as an industry, perhaps to appease the client. Sometimes, and look, the client has to take some responsibility here. We meet them all the time that they have this number in their head and they just want us to confirm it. And I appreciate that that's a difficult thing for agents to do, to say, no, your number is incorrect, because they know agent number 2 will be in the door in 20 minutes, an hour later, agent number 3, and they're just going to confirm that price. So I'm not, I don't want to be a hypocrite. It's not easy. It's difficult. But if buyers are able to educate themselves, surely we must be able to educate our clients, because we do it 7 days a week.
We've got to be good at telling a story, getting the emotional side and the logical side. And again, as you said in a previous webinar that we've done recently, is that you have to be the first choice second agent. Because I think, isn't it interesting, ladies and gentlemen, that if there's 3 agents that are called out, agent A, B, and C, and agent A says the realistic price, agent B says the realistic price, and agent C says the overinflated price, at the end of the sole agency, which agent's going to get it? Agent D, because they won't go back to A and B because they don't want to appear foolish and that, yes, you were right and I was wrong, because humans don't like to be vulnerable and don't like to look silly. So again, in this market, ladies and gentlemen, is put your pride on the shelf and go for the second-hand stock. Just not giving too much away, Ben. What techniques do you use to become the first called second agent?
So our entire marketing is built around properties that are currently on the market, active on the market. For a bit of context, my small fine and country business is West London, South West London, and a bit of North Surrey. And so we're a small team. We only focus on the top end of the market, which means we're not high volume. So we're able to track everything that comes to market above £1 million. That's where we work from. And so as soon as they come to market, we're in contact with them. We're introducing ourselves. We want to help them with their onwards purchase. And that's a legitimate statement. We have 200 locations in the UK, a further 100 across the world. So if they're moving somewhere else, we like to think we can help them with their onwards purchase. We'll offer services like onwards negotiation. We want to get their contact details. We want to be able to communicate with them. We want to stay in contact with them through the length of the sole agency, quite often, agreement that they're in. And when I say we'll get in touch with them, I'm talking about we're knocking on the door, and we'll knock on the door every week until we have a good conversation. And then after that, we'll revisit them and drop off some marketing to them frequently. It's really, really labor intensive. But the data shows, when we started building this model, the data showed that 60 to 70% of properties were being sold by the second agent to list them. We like the idea of that. That's a nice big chunk of the market for us. So if a load of agents aren't selling at round one, that's arguably a dogfight we don't want to be in. I mean, we would like to be called out by your perfect consumer who will absolutely be guided on the absolute right price and the launch strategy. But as we know, that's not always the case. So we've put our eggs in the basket of, we like to work off the stock where other agents have managed to not deliver.
Indeed, great insight there. All right, let's get back to the stats. Right, let's go and look at gross sales. So this week, in terms of gross sales, we have sold 24,322, which, as you can see on the graph here, is very comparable to other years, with the average asking price of the property that going sale agreed, 364,720. Year to date, 715,114 gross sales, which is 10.7% further on than the 2023 figure and 6.7% higher than the average of the normal years of 17, 18 and 19. The white line on the graph here shows the weekly figures compared to the more normal years of 17, 18, 19 and 20. And you can see there that, we are well ahead of 17 and 18. We are miles ahead of the 2023. And remember, we haven't even had the Truss Budget. No, that was 22, my apologies. But in 23, we are miles ahead of where we were in 2023. That's not bad, is it?
No, I do think it makes for good reading. I'm particularly interested in can 2024 be a better year than 2022? Because the back end of 2022 was, as you just mentioned, Trussonomics was a bit of a disaster. So we're about, what are we, 60,000 transactions off catching 2022? Wouldn't it be good? What a year that would be. What a turnaround after last year being so tough, people finding it challenging. It's been a funny few years, but if 2024 turns out to be the second best year in a few years, I'll be very happy with that.
I mean, again, we are jumping ahead here. The white line is 2024. The pink line is the blue line is 2024. Sorry, start again. The white line is this year, 2024. The blue line is 2022. So you can see here throughout the spring that the blue line was higher than the white line up until week 15. And then there was and again, it carried on through the Easter break. But here, and again, we're not as far on in 22, but look at that blue line and how she drops like a stone in after the Truss Budget. So whilst we are behind here, even if we match last year at 2023, we will catch up 2022. I'm sure of it.
Right.
But again, even then, but I think we'll be above the pink line, which is 2023. I think I mean, at this rate, we're going to be blowing the 17 to 29 figures out. We're going to be between that orange line and the green line, which is going to be brilliant compared to the blue line of 2020.
Well, listen, Chris, you say that. The forever optimist, if rates start to come down, we could surpass the 2021 line in the second half of the year. If rates come down and it does increase budgets for a subsection of the market, I think we could see more buyers, more activity, and we've already got the housing stock available. So it could be a really, really great second half of the year.
Good stuff. Well, we'll come back to this graph, but I think it was just appropriate, ladies and gentlemen, to show it. Okay, so we've done the sales. We've looked at this graph already, but this is the difference. And again, there's always going to be a difference because higher priced properties have a lower propensity to sell. It's the gap. This week, the gap is 17%, which is more in line with long-term expectations. Because earlier in the year, it's been around the early to mid 20s, which doesn't make me feel good. So 17%, but again, it's the difference between these two. Again, let's just have a quick look. These are the again standalone figures for week 29. And again, see the trend of the green lines, which is going up and then drifting down slightly, but then average asking prices. And the turquoise lines again going up and drifting down. So that it's the difference between the two, which is measured by this. As I said, the percentage difference this week, 17.2. It has been up into the 23s, 24s, 25s, which again is classic overvaluing. Anything before we move on to fall throughs?
No, I think you've covered it. It's not a wildly high figure, but it could be improved. I'm sure we'll get there. I hope we'll get there.
So fall throughs, you can see here we've got a trend line here, but I just want to say, ladies and gentlemen, so we're starting here in July 22, and we're obviously here in July 24. So we've got 2 years worth of fall through numbers. The downward spikes here are Christmas, and you almost have to ignore those because Christmas is weird. It's the general direction. So you can see here that in the Truss economics, the number of fall throughs went up to 8,000 or 9,000. Then, as I said, ignore the Christmas. And then they were hovering around the 5. They went up to 6.5. Then it's been falling. Notice it has been slightly increasing, and we're up to around the 6,000 mark. So again, any of you doom mongers out there, please pick up on this and take this graph and run with it. So, because it proves obviously your point. But let's get back to reality. I know she says the property market might crash. I don't know. But at the end of the day, everything's looking pretty good there. Let's look at this one. Now, this is probably, in my opinion, a more important graph. So this is the number of fall throughs in a week expressed as a percentage of the number of properties that went to sale agreed. It's not the most perfect measurement, but it's a pretty darn good one. Okay. Again, you ignore the Christmas spikes. We're looking at trends. So there's the Truss economics at 40%. She went down to this bit here is the spring of 23, where things were nice and quiet at around 21, 22%. She lifted up in the summer of 23 when interest rates kicked in, started to drift downwards. Christmas spike, went again, strange week, and she's now been moving up. And now this week we are at 24.79. Which again, most people think 1 in 3 homes fall through. No, it isn't. The long-term average is 24.28. Okay, 1 in 4 homes fall through. So you can see that again, just showing you that things are just easing off. Still, 1 in 4 houses is not particularly good in terms of fall throughs. But as I said, 6,030. I'm not too fussed about the numbers because the sales are up. It's the percentages. What are your thoughts on fall throughs? Or
yeah, I think I say this every time I'm on, that you're right. Everybody thinks it's 1 in 3. That's what we were taught, and for some reasons, what we continue to teach and educate. 1 in 4 is vastly better than 1 in 3. But yeah, the underlying issue still relies that 25% of the work you're going to do, you're not going to get paid on, which is just insane. Yeah, I think this is the part where I normally plug Gazelle. Guys, if you're doing business and you want to shore up your business, Gazelle is a seriously fantastic lock-in agreement approved by the Law Society. It's a 1-page document, and we use it on the vast majority of the business we put together. If the average fall-through rate is 1 in 4, when we use this product, it's something like 1 in 14 or 1 in 15. So it's fantastic. It's worth looking at, and it shores up your income.
I can confer that Gazelle is a fantastic firm alongside other suppliers and these are called reservation agreements. And ladies and gentlemen, I cannot stress the importance that if you want something to distinguish yourself from your competitors, then reservation agreements are fantastic. Every single agent that I know that uses them and uses them correctly, because it's the way you sell them and set them up. And if you need some agents to talk to who are, Alex Knight from Maidstone and Sean Adams from Worthing, Cooper Adams, massive proponents of it. Obviously, Ben is as well. I'm a massive fan of reservation agreements. Make sure that you go with a firm that teaches your valuers how to do it, and you can use it as a weapon to A, get more listings, so you need your valuers on board, but B, getting single-digit fall-throughs. It's mind-blowing stuff, and I really don't know why estate agents don't use reservation agreements. It really is an absolute no-brainer. Absolute no-brainer. You're putting your head in your sand if you're not using them. They will cut your fall-through rates, which means you get paid more, which at the end of the day means you can earn more and your staff can earn more. Anyway, let's get back off the soapbox and let's go and look at net sales. So net sales are gross sales less fall-throughs that week. And the white line, as I said, is 2024. And we are nicely above the 17 to 19 figure, and we are well above the 2023 figure. Year to date, we are 555,378 properties, which is 12.9% ahead of the 2023 figure, and 4.5% ahead of the 17, 18, and 19 figure. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think we've both already discussed it. That what will be great is when we surpass 2022. That will be fantastic. That's the bounce back everybody wanted to see. The property market crash has been predicted over the last couple of years. Don't know what happened there, but yeah, good news is good news.
Okay. Well, I suppose if they keep banging on about it, it'll be true probably in the next 20 years. Like you say, a stuck clock is always right twice in a day, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, let's see. Well, no, let's. You know what? Let's not have a conversation about negativity. Let's just talk about things are moving beautifully forward.
Okay, but ladies and gentlemen, if the market does go belly up, houses still sell. So you shouldn't worry about whether house prices go up or down. Your success is not based on house prices. People will always need to move home, and it's your job to get a slice of that cake, a bigger slice of the pie. Okay, couple of graphs here, price changes as a percentage of listings and gross sales as a percentage of listings. Again, some of you like those graphs, not favorites of mine, but we like to put them in, like to care and share. Again, we'll just spend a minute or so on this. Number of properties for sale we've already talked about, and this is the number of properties for sale split down by region. We can see what's happening there. Okay. These are two graphs I know you love to bits. The proportional split between sales stock and sales pipeline. So this is proportionality. We'll look at the raw numbers in a second. So the orange is the properties for sale. The green in colour are properties that are sold to the contract. And it's the balance between the two. And you can see here that, you know, on average, for every 2 houses that were for sale in 17, 18 and 19, you had one house sold to the contract. Here in the boomed years of 2020, 21, for every 1 house you had for sale, you had 1 in the pipeline. And now we're back to just slightly below. We're not at the sort of levels that we saw there, which is around 60%. We're around the 60. So for every 6 houses that are for sale, 4 are in your pipeline. Okay. So I know you like these graphs, don't you? These particular ones, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good stuff. House prices. How can we judge house prices? Okay, so there's a lot of detail in this graph here. I'm an absolutely massive fan of pound per square foot, because if you look at pound per square foot and index it back to 100 and then apply that to the land registry from 5 months ago, 5 months in advance, they match with a 92% correlation. What does that mean? The bottom line is, ladies and gentlemen, if you follow the pound per square foot at sale agreed and the movement of that month on month, year on year, that will track the land registry in 5 months' time almost perfectly. What is that line? The orange line in this graph. You can see here that average asking that the property sale agreed are rising from around that 320, 325, 23. I've got the exact figures on the computer. I'll put them when I write this up. And now we're knocking on the door. So it's the orange line is showing that house prices are rising approximately 5%, 5 or 6% higher in July compared to January. So therefore, house prices between July this year and December will go up by approximately 5%. You've heard it here, okay? Otherwise, I will eat something that's inedible. I don't know, but that orange line has matched the land registry almost perfectly for 6 or 7 years. So watch this space. Anything else you want to add?
The lag, Chris, the lag is 5 months.
The lag is 5 months.
Yeah,
5 or 6 months.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it makes complete sense.
So therefore, land registry between now and December. So that's remember the December figures are not going to be announced until probably late Feb, early March. But between July and December, 5%, 5 to 6% increase. Heard it here first. I mean, that is subject to nothing stupid low black swan events. Well, no, but you know, I've got
no, you're right. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, but assuming nothing happens, there will be a 5% increase. There you go. You heard it here first. Keir Starmer, so okay, if you're reading that, then put that into your pipe and smoke it, because it's coming. It's coming. It's going to help you out with your stamp duty. Those are the number of properties that are in the estate agency pipelines, unit numbers at the end of every June, because we always do it at the end of the month. Obviously, the July figures will be coming through when we do the August stuff. So again, interesting that there's 481,000 properties in a stages pipeline compared to the averages of around 17, 18, 19, of around that 360, 380 mark.
So Chris, sorry, can I ask you a question? So looking at this, there's a lot more in the pipeline than 17, 18, 19.
Yes.
But if you go back to the graph where we split available versus pipeline, the difference, so all of that, because it's very, very similar, marginally down on pipeline versus for sale. All the difference is the increased stock that's in the market. Yeah, okay, interesting. That is interesting.
Well, there's a bit more stock, not much more, 700 versus 670. There's just more. That's number of properties for sale.
Yeah.
It's just more, there's more in sales pipeline.
Yeah, but as a proportion of this stock available, there's not really, is there?
Well, again, it's the balance of,
Marginal.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, look, the average is not massively different because look, in 17, 18, and 19, the average is around 65, and at the moment we're around the 60 mark.
Yeah.
So therefore, while stock levels are, probably 6 or 7% higher, pipelines are 25% higher.
Yeah, which
Look,
I don't know how. I'm not sure I can work that out.
well, look, 480 divided by 380.
Yeah, but what I mean is, if your pipeline is 25% higher, then proportionally, and stock is only up 6 or 7%,
Yeah, but
then
remember that.
proportionally you should see
Okay.
more of it in the pipeline, shouldn't you?
Well, but again, we're talking of smaller numbers, so it's going to have a slightly different effect to the proportionality. Here at the moment, you've got 481,000 and 700,000. It's the proportional bit between the two.
Yeah.
Okay. Whilst here, let's just say we go, I don't know, June 18, you've got 396 versus 671. And again, the proportionality is like, it's, but those are the stats that have driven this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really interesting.
A lot of agents are going to turn around and say, well, this is because pipelines are taking longer to go through. We were complaining in 17, 18, and 19 that sales are taking 17, 18 weeks. Things are just going through as, would it surprise you that in the last 12 months, sales are going through 12 days quicker than they did the 12 months before that? Those are the stats.
No, I mean, it wouldn't.
It's the sentiment. We work on sentiment, don't we? It feels like they're going slower because we need the money through because, but the bottom line is sales are going through quicker. Okay, when we're talking the difference between 12 days and it's taking 19 weeks, it doesn't feel that. But it is 12.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they should be going through quicker though now. There should be less of a backlog. I was just going to say that in our business, we're less impacted by the transaction speed. And really, any comment I have on time of transaction is probably data I've seen of yours or anecdotally what I'm hearing from other people. But I think logically, it should be taking less time right now to get a sale through. I think that makes sense.
I mean, we should be talking about instructing valuations before the property comes on the market and getting the draft contract pack ready. And these are the things that us estate agents can do. We don't have to wait for government to change the legislation. We can do so much. It's just that we're afraid of change. It's reservation agreements, massive fans of those. If you can get the pack ready to rock and roll, and then as soon as the sale goes agreed, it can get sorted out, and you've got negs that don't leave sales chasing to the end of the week, and someone's on holiday in Foster and change it. I'm sorry, I know we all blame solicitors and and they have too much work on, but the buck stops with us, and I think we could be better at chasing our sales and being progressive. But anyway, anything on that before we go to sunny Cheltenham?
I'm going to be a bit cloak and dagger. We've just started working with a company. I've signed an NDA, so I can't tell you who they are, but I'll tell you what they do, and people can do a bit of digging around themselves. They help with the sales progression piece. In essence, they are instructed to begin the conveyancing at point of instructing the property to go to market, and they will instruct from their panel a conveyancer to work on the seller's side, their client, and the buyer's side, and they will run the process while the property is on the market. Once it goes under offer, let's say 4 to 6 weeks, everything should be ready to go. Searches handled, all the back and forth. At point of going under offer, the buyer's conveyancer is passed across to them, and the pack is ready, and that becomes their representation. It's amazing. Such a simple process. We've only been using them for a short period of time so far on 2 files. And my hope is that they go far and wide. At the moment, they're really in their infancy and they're sort of testing and they're getting their model right. And so they don't want, I think, 1 million inquiries while they're getting everything sort of fine-tuned. But my hope is that this goes well, they go far and wide, and this completely changes the face of conveyancing and how it's done in this country, because they're able to, at point of the property going under offer, they can shave 87% of the time it would normally take off to get to exchange and completion.
And there's no conflict of interest between the two solicitors.
Different conveyances.
Okay, obviously it needs to be sold correctly to the person buying. But
Crucial, yeah. So
Yeah.
in essence, the seller is paying for the conveyancing on both sides because it's the work's being done in advance. So when you pass it over to the buyer's getting their conveyancing for free. Now, occasionally the buyer might say, well, you know, my mum's a conveyancer, I want her to do it for me. Okay, fine. Pick up the pack, hand it to your mum, and your mum can check over all the work. And if she wants to raise any additional inquiries, she can. The inquiries are handled, the searches have been ordered, we're ready to go. If you're cash, we can exchange in 4 days. But the vast majority are not cash. Or
Yeah,
not the vast majority,
that's a great. I mean, that's a fantastic idea. So when you're able to tell them, please put them in my direction so I can cast them independent radar right on that. So fantastic. I think what we'll now do is let us now go to Cheltenham and see what that is all about in that property market. So here we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're using a piece of software called Insight from the firm 20EA. 20EA have a number of different pieces of software called different things. This one is called Insight. I must stress to you that Insight is something which I believe is a game-changing piece of software. It's very easy for me to say that, but I'm an absolute massive fan of it. I will stress to you that 20EA have not paid me 1 penny to mention their software. They do give me this software free of charge, and I use it to show you these details. The software is available at both a town level, regional level, and national level. And at town level, in my opinion, is damn good value for money. Not a lot of money. I will not mention the money because I'm not here to sell it. You don't have to mention my name. In fact, don't want you to mention my name because, again, I'm not on commission. But this piece of software will show you if you are genuinely a better estate agent that gets more money for your vendors, sells your homes quicker. This proves it. So if you're on the doorstep and you're being beaten up by cheap fees or overvaluing, this will prove it for you. As I said, we are looking at the beautiful city of Cheltenham. Spa, actually. I think it's a spa town, Ben. Have you ever been?
I've been to the races.
Fantastic. Good stuff. I've got a real soft spot for it. In fact, the area called Pittville, lovely properties, absolutely. So, and I tell you what, my very good friend Richard Rawlings used to live there. So there you go. So for the purposes of this, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to spend 10 or 15 minutes really deep diving into the different estate agents and letting agents in Cheltenham and seeing which ones are the best using various different metrics. For the purposes of Cheltenham, we are looking at the postcode districts of GL 50, 51, 52 and 53. I didn't choose GL 54 because that's more Cotswolds. That's a judgment I made. Some of you might be disadvantaged by that. Some of you might not. Though that was my choice because I saw that as core Cheltenham and mostly the surrounding villages around. Ben and I are going to be looking at this, and Ben, as always, just jump in when you see something that catches your eye.
I've already got it. I've already got it. Knight Frank, 7th or 830 listings. That's interesting. Top end agent. Very interesting.
Yeah, so what we'll do, you know, he's like a rat down a drain pipe, that young man. Okay, so what we're doing now is we are looking at from January 2019 all the way through to July 2024. We're going to be looking at new instructions, and we will see how every single agent compares and see where their new instructions have gone. So it's important to remember here, and let's just switch off new builds because we don't want those because it just muddies the waters. The average asking price of a property that has come onto the market, and 22,651 properties have come on the market in the last 5.5 years in Cheltenham, with an average asking price of 416,000. So therefore, when we're looking at all the different agents, we can see where they stand in the marketplace, whether they're upper quartile, middle, or lower. Okay, so you can see here again that this shows you the number of properties coming on the market, and you can see here that was 2020, that dipped down, but you can see here that the number of properties coming on the market generally has been increasing through the last couple of years, but not massively compared to the big year of 2020. And we'll just use this. We like to use full months. In June 2024, 377 houses came on the market, compared to 363 in June 22, compared to 363, compared to 312 in 21, and very similar, as you can see here. So it's always around that 350, 400 mark that come on the market in sunny Cheltenham Spa. Let's have a look at how the different agents perform. So remember, 416 is our number. So Peterborough, you can see here that their market share has drifted slightly from around that 12 or 15, around that 12, 13, 14%. This is for instructions, and has drifted down to around the 7% mark. They're 375 compared to 416. So you can see that they tend to be probably a lower to middle market agent. Okay. Next, now we're going to have a look at Andrews. So again, Andrews, their market share was around the 18 or 19% mark in 2019. We'll ignore the spike, which was COVID. And again, a slight drifting downwards, hovering around that 10% mark. So again, ignoring the spike, it looks like both number 2 estate agents in Cheltenham has seen a slight drifting downwards, nothing seismic, but a drifting downwards of market share. Let's go and look at the Property Centre, who are a regional player around that Bristol M4, M5 corridor, if memory serves me well. Let's go and look at the Property Centre. They are obviously growing. Again, they tend to, as you can see here, at the lower end of the market, the starter homes, but their market share seems to be growing from around that 4 or 5% mark up to around 7 or 8. Let's go and look at Cook Residential. You seem to have leveled out. Again, 337. These are low numbers, aren't they? So the volume agents tend to be which I would expect. Again, this is I know you're fine in country, so this would be of interest to you. But I've done every show we do an analysis like this, and there is only one place in the UK out of over 70 locations where the number 1 volume agent is also the number 1 upper quartile or upper quintile, which is the upper top 20%, upper quartile, top 25%, the same agent. So in the rest of the towns, the number 1 posh agent has not been the volume agent. There's only one place in the UK where they are.
Go on.
Exeter, Wilkinson Grant.
Oh, I'm surprised.
Okay.
I'm surprised.
Now remember, we've only looked at 70 locations, and there could be other towns that I've not come across my radar of stats. But of the ones that I've looked at, only one.
Interesting.
Isn't it? So it just shows you that if you do want to break into the upper quartile, one thing you do need is either like a different brand. Yeah. I mean, and again, you know, even if, let's say, you call yourself Blogs & Co. Exclusive Homes, it's still Blogs & Co. It doesn't work. You probably need a separate brand. Remember, just put black and gold on it and just, you know, everyone.
You know what, though? I think we had a conversation about this years ago. I think even before I was finding country, and how some of the more recognizable premium corporate brands diversified into covering the whole of the market. They would take on all price points, and how that has negatively impacted their superiority at the top end of the market. So I think you're bang on. To be a specialist, you need to be a specialist. And the consumer is, especially, I think, at the top end of the market, there's a perception that they need a specialism and not your agent that's selling the sort of mass market stock. We saw that ourselves. That's why we're a finding country licensee, because our core brand did not attract or do business at that level.
I mean, what is particularly interesting is that Knight Frank and Savills had around just under 18% of all listings of £1 million or above in 2019. And today they've got 13% of the market. Mm-hmm. And is that because your Knight Franks and your Savills have dipped down slightly in terms of picking more the middle market? I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm just asking the questions. Okay, Cook & Co. at 337. They look like they're going up. Well done, guys and girls. Move seem to be pretty steady there at 345. Knight Frank. Look at that. Knight Frank are bucking the trend there. Well done. Well, we'll go and look at you, ladies and gentlemen, for the upper quartile in a second. CJ Hull, which is part of the franchise group. Again, looks like he had a good 19, but bumbling out nicely around the 3% mark. Nick Griffin. We'll just do a few more. Charles Lear, you seem to be a posh agent. We'll come and look at you in a second. Harry Bishop. Okay. EXP. I would expect some growth there. Well done, EXP. Kingsley Evans. Hunters. Cleves. You guys have dropped down. Shame. Cotswold Estate Agents. Savills. Oh dear, compared to Knight Frank. Knight Frank seem to be the daddies, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay. Demel, let's go and look at Demel there. Well done, guys. You looks like you're growing quite nicely. Look at that. Actually, we'll look at that in a second. So they've grown. I mean, that is really good. That is fantastic growth. We'll go and look at that in a second. Reed Morris, PB, as expected, RA, okay. Shaw Lettings, Martin, okay, we'll go down to 25. Hamptons and Sam Ray. Okay, tell you what, let's just go and have a look at that Demel looked really good. That caught my eye, that did. Let's go to Jan 23. Here we go.
So Chris, I might have asked this before. When we're looking at this data, we're looking at the brand. So if, for instance, Andrew's estate agents in the 4 postcode regions we're looking at has 4 branches, it will capture the data for all 4 branches. And so likewise, EXP could have 1 agent work in the area, or they could have 30 and it will capture everything. Okay.
Okay, so let's just have a look. So Andrews, isn't that this is, so we're now looking at a year and a half here. So Peter Ball, who were number 1 at who were the big agent over this 5.5 years. If we just look at a year and a half, Peter Ball will go down to number 2. Okay. Andrews, the property centre, and Demel. Look at that. I mean, that's impressive. I mean, let's just go and see what it is on Jan the 1st. Let's see who's working now. Okay, Andrews. I'd love to know what Demel are doing. Now, well done, Demel.
How far can you go back?
I can go back to the 1st of January 2019.
Is that where we started?
Yes.
Okay. I wonder how long Demel have been around.
Okay, well, let's go back. Oh, well, we can find out. Hold on. Just take a quick one. That'll just take a while for it to kick in, because we are asking a lot of it. Right, here we go. I don't know why that's not updating it. I know why. Because they only go back to August 2021. So again, it looks like they launched with a big lump of properties, but fundamentally, it looks like they launched 5%. So they hit the ground running. I'd love to know what they did to hit the ground running with a 5% market share, and they've grown since. So well done, Demel. We like you. Right, we said that we would look at the upper quartile. So we're looking here for a number of around 3,000 or 4,000 to give a flavour of the upper quartile. Just wait for it to, okay, we're going to go up a quintile, or up a whatever the 16th is, but 6th, but just the posh end. We'll just call it that between mates. No one's watching this, mate. Don't worry about it. So let's see who the big agents are in the 750 mark. Okay, so Kingsley Evans, that's interesting. Let's just see. So Knight Frank, Kingsley Evans. Tell you what, let's just knock off that million. Let's go and look at just the posh end. Just intrigued. Switch that off. There we go. So it looks like the Knight Frank are the agents of choice when it comes with 28%. So well done, Knight Frank. Those are impressive numbers in the £1 million mark. There's not a huge amount of properties, but still, just under a third of the properties in the £1 million mark must be doing so well. Kingsley Evans, Charles, Lear, Savills, Hamptons, Move, Peterball, CJ Hole, LA Agency, and Nick Griffin. Okay, so we'll Cook. There we go. Okay. Nothing that screams at me apart from the fact that Knight Frank seemed to be the dominant agent of choice in the posh range. Any thoughts on this before we move on and look at the other stuff?
No, good for them. Good for whoever's head of that branch is doing some exceptional work.
That is really, really good because normally Savills do beat Knight Frank in terms of market share.
Yeah.
But obviously, someone's doing some good at Knight Frank in sunny Cheltenham. Well done. Okay, here we go. Okay, let me just change the dates on this. 23rd. Here we go. So, a lot happening here. Ben, can you look at the withdrawals and fall throughs? I'll be coming to you in a second. Want some analysis on that? Okay. So, a lot of stats here, ladies and gentlemen, and I just want to spend a minute or so just going through this. Many of you will look. So, this is for the 23rd of July 2023 to the 22nd of July 2024. Most of you, because you love your market share, because you get one of your competitors and your egos massaging, we'll look at the new instruction market share percentages and the sale agreed percentages and good for you. But the real gold here, ladies and gentlemen, situated in these four columns here: exchanged, exchange percentage, withdrawn, or withdrawn percentage. A property leaving an estate agent's books will only leave an estate agent's books for two reasons. She exchanges or she withdraws. If it exchanges, you get paid. If it withdraws, you don't get paid. And this is or more importantly, if it exchanges, your vendor moves to their next home. If it withdraws, your vendor doesn't move home. So therefore, in the last 12 months, out of the, and again, we know this, so out of the 3,895 properties, how do we know that? Because 2,160 plus 1,735, add the two together, those are the number of properties that have left estate agents' books in the last 12 months. 55.46% of properties you've been paid on, whilst 44.5% properties you have not been paid on. So the bottom line is this: estate agents are only getting paid on 55.46% of properties that have left agents' books in the last 12 months, which means for every two houses you put on the market, you're only really getting paid on one. So it's the agent who is exchanging more is the more efficient agent, and therefore I would say a better estate agent. There are provisos about the price you achieve, which we'll come on to in the screen in a second. So therefore, Andrews have exchanged contracts on 48.1% of properties that they have put onto the market or left their books, and had withdrawn 52% or 51.92. So therefore, I'm sorry to say, and this is not a criticism, but Andrews are slightly below the average in Cheltenham for the properties that they've exchanged on. The property centre, 62.37, massive. That is a fantastic number. Cooks are up there at 64. We've got Demel at 49. So your market share has been growing, Demel. However, what has suffered there is your exchange ratio is slightly below other agents like the property centre and Cook and Co.
Look at CJ Hole, 69%.
It's fantastic. Look at Cotswold estate agents, 77.
Wowza. Good for them. It's great.
Okay. Let's just have a look, look at some of these numbers here. Kingsley at 41, 67. There's some big numbers here. So, if I was the property centre going up against Andrews, Mrs. Miggins, with me, you have over a 6 in 10 chance of moving, whilst with the others, you have a less than 1 in 2 chance of moving. These are independent stats. And I know many of these firms have insights, but if you haven't got insights, then why don't you ask your boss why, because if I was the property centre or I was Cook at residential, I would want to be using these stats to my advantage and saying, you've got nearly a 2 in 3 chance of moving as opposed to a less than 1 in 2 chance. And here's the stats that prove it, Mrs. Miggins. You can see why I'm an absolute fanboy of this. Okay, as I said, I'm not criticizing, I'm not praising, I'm just giving you this raw facts. What's anything that screams at you with withdrawals and fall throughs?
Well, Knight Frank, who praising heavily, their withdrawal rate is 52%, which is above the average 44. But to fight their corner, the top end of the market,
You are
actually pretty good.
Can you remember earlier in the show that the higher priced properties have a lower propensity to sell? Now, we're not going to do this in this instance, but you can actually change the, well, no, tell you what, let's do it. Let's level the playing field for our friends at Knight Frank. And now all of a sudden, we're just looking at the £1 million mark, that you can see, look, Knight Frank exchanging on 39, Kingsley's at 34, Charles there at 40, Savills at 47, Hampton's at 58. But again, when you're dealing, but remember, when you're dealing with small numbers,
volume, sure.
it will mess up it will screw the figures up. But I think there's nothing wrong with Knight Frank there. They're holding their head above the water quite proudly on that one. I've nothing wrong with that. I mean, yeah, the fall through rates. I mean, there's nothing that's screaming there. You know, the average is 24.58, which is near as damn it the national average. But you know, Peter Ball slightly higher at 30. I believe Peter Ball just bought out by, I think it was Lomans.
Well, you've got, I mean, it's a pretty strong chance if it's going to be someone, it's going to be them.
But I believe it was. I do know it's Lomans. It's just dropped into my head. But that was only a couple of months ago. So, you know, Lomans haven't been able to put the Loman magic on it just yet. Okay. Anything there before we move on?
No, I don't think so. Interesting.
Okay, right then. So this particular one shows many things. And there's a lot of data in here, which again, a lot of agents go, oh my God, there's way too much information here. Let me explain this because there is absolute gold in here. Okay, so in the last 12 months, the Insights platform has done an AVM, like an automated valuation model, a bit like a Valpal figure for every one of your listings. So Andrews did a Valpal figure or their own Val figure on all the listings, and then looked at what you've actually put the house on the market for. And on average, Andrews overvalue their properties by 1.8%, which is actually the Cheltenham average. So therefore, the property centre seem to be slightly overvaluing at 1.92. But honestly, that's quite nice. That's quite tight. Last week, we were in a town where it was 5-6%. And some are at 1%. I mean, it was just all over the shop. So that's nice, tight. That shows me a good, healthy market where no one's being stupid with their overvaluing. Of course, you're going to bump the figure up slightly. Nothing wrong with that. The most important thing is, what do you actually achieve off the back of those valuations and of those initial asking prices? And Andrews achieved 5.34% on average less than the original asking price. The property centre 4.72, and you can see the numbers going all the way down here. Okay. So what does this mean? Well, what the beautiful thing about the Insights platform is they say, right, if we took an average 500 grand house, on average, what would each agent sell it for? And Andrews would achieve the average agent in Cheltenham would achieve 485,550. Nearest down at 485 grand, of which Andrews would achieve 478, the property centre 485, Peterball 488, Demel 480, Cook Residential 485, Elliot Oliver 490, Move EXP 493, Move, I mean, no, that 500,000, a couple of 500s there. So immediately, Move could say, Mrs. Miggins, I will get you more money for your house, and here is the proof. This is what that means. You know, the average agent will get you. The average Cheltenham agent on a 500 grand house will achieve 485. We will achieve 500,552. Mrs. Miggins, you get 15 grand more. That's what it's saying. Now you could say there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. But at the end of the day, the automated valuation model is the same model based on all the same houses, and then they know what the house is sold through the land registry. Gold.
Gold. I completely agree. Gold. make the consumer like you, make them fall in love with you, professionalism, trust, integrity, and then drop these bombs. You've won. You're winning all day.
The magic thing here, ladies and gentlemen, is that if you use this as your initial bomb, it will not. You need to emotionally get. I mean, I don't know if you're. I know you know, Ben, but my daytime job is I help estate and letting agents attract landlords and vendors to their agency by the use of marketing. Okay, and the marketing messages that you can use from this are really, really important. If you turn around and say, "I'll get you 15 grand more," that won't work. It will bounce off like a bomb off the ship, and it won't explode. You need to get them. You need to get them to emotionally buy into you first, and then you hit them with this. And boy, oh boy, if you do it in the right way, using great sales psychology, you will land the target every single time. Now, if you're one of the agents that isn't on this, that isn't not so good, then it shows it. Are you getting the best price for your home? But what you could use is this. You could use the I sell. I got a greater chance of moving. There's going to be different stats that you can use to attract people to you. And it's very, very rare for someone to be the king daddy for the top price and also be the one that sells the most homes on the exchange to listings ratio. So absolutely fantastic bit of kit. Let's just go a couple more bits to have a look at. How quickly do agents sell homes? So again, I would expect Knight Frank to take longer, on average 158 days from NI, which is new instruction to sold subject contract 158. But we can see here, so again, overall, it takes on average 75 days to find a buyer in the last 12 months compared to 50 days from the summer of 22 to the summer of 23. So it is taking longer to find a buyer. But you can see here that Peter Ball and Andrews are taking, on total, 211 days from new instruction to completion, whilst the property centre, 159 days. So this is showing that you are, you get your houses sold quicker and you can show your sales progression. That looks fantastic, sales progression to, from sale agreed to completion, 108 days. When you consider that the average in Cheltenham is 119 days, that just shows you that the guys, the boys and girls at, no, actually, hold on a second. Yeah, 108 days, sorry. Yeah, their sales progression is better than probably other agents. So just shows you. Right, okay, let's move on. Anything on there before we go and look at the rentals?
No, but I mean, the property centre who are right at the top, who are doing really well, the difference, the swing is only 11 days against the average. So there must be some guys, I wonder if further down, that maybe the guys that take a little bit longer to sell properties are actually really strong from a conveyancing perspective. That's quite interesting.
I mean, okay, there's a bit of in the middle run, there's a bit of tightness there, but when you compare the property, Andrews with the #1 agent in the last year, they are taking longer to find a buyer, but they're okay. Let's just have a quick look at their sales progression. 87 days and 124, 51 days and 108.
Yeah,
just something to consider. Right.
No, listen, I think everything is an opportunity to offer more value, and that absolutely is valuable. We all know a fast exchange is a good exchange. The longer it's in the pipeline, the greater the risk. So speed is key, and this proves that they are outperforming the rest of the market.
Okay, right. Final screen is lettings. Okay, now there's not so much information on this, ladies and gentlemen, but what we are going to look at is new instructions. Obviously, most of these are going to be existing properties returning, but the more new instructions or relists that you're doing, it shows you the greater the properties you probably have in your stock. Okay, so I mean, let's just spend a little. Just interesting is this. So let's just spend a little bit of fun. Give me a second here. There we go. So the average rent in 2019 in Cheltenham was £890, and in the last 12 months, we'll do the last 6 months, 1,261. Growth.
50% uplift.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Right. Okay, let's get back. So let's just Right, this graph hasn't changed yet, so we just need to get it to do its funky stuff. Where are you? Come on. Oh, he's done it. That's fine. Good stuff. Okay, let's start from the top. Okay, so Elliott's. Wow. I mean, normally I expect open. Now this is that. I've not seen this for a long time. Okay, look at that. You see, if I was blind testing, I would say that was open rent.
Yeah, yeah.
Because open rent in the UK have gone from around 4 or 5% to around 20% in the last 5.5 years. Okay. Open rent seemed to have just leveled out around that 10, 8, 9, 10% mark. Interesting. Interesting. So I don't know what Cheltenham was doing differently with open rent, because normally that, I mean, Elliot, well done on that one, guys and girls. That is absolutely fantastic. I don't know what you're doing there, but if you're organically growing your lettings business, then the rest, I don't know what, well, let's have a look at what the other agents doing. CJ Hull, part of the property franchise group. Growth there as well. It's good to see. Morgan Associates. Pretty level. I mean, this is so far, normally most towns, open rent have been taking stock from agents and they've been growing. This is really good stuff. Let's look at leaders. We static around the 6% mark. Move sales up. Peter Ball, again, it's pretty static around 5%. CGT, they're based around Gloucester and the Cheltenham area. Andrews, oh dear guys, your market share seems to be dropping. Northwood, Martin and Co, Belvoir, Hamptons, Shaw, Cleve, rowing, well done. Carver Knowles, Hunters, Errington, Smith, Town and Village Properties. Wow, that's a big mouthful. R.A. Bennett, which I think is part of Coles Countrywide, and Winkworth's. And we'll just do these two here. There you go. Okay, fantastic. Just I thought that might be of interest to you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, let's go. Final words from Ben of anything today that you just want to get off your chest.
I think what letting agents in Cheltenham are doing needs to be a lesson for everybody else. If I was running a letting agency right now, I would be delighted that open rent hold 20% of all letting stock in this country, because I can get hold of the landlords. There's so much opportunity to go after open rent and provide to that consumer base additional value around all the legislation, all the compliance, and the fact that as a letting agency, you do this 24/7, you can help them achieve better things than they may be able to achieve themselves. Looking at what's happening in Cheltenham right now, the good agents are doing that. They are 100% going after open rent and taking stock back. Everybody should be doing that. If I was running a letting agency right now, that is what my team would be doing.
Absolutely fantastic. And again, if you are a Cheltenham agent and you're looking to grow your lettings or estate agency business, and you want a marketing guru and a guide or a coach, then please do give me a shout on. You've got my contact details on the YouTube, and give me a shout anywhere. With one agent per town, but it's something that I do help agents. I do. I think it's about 125 locations around the UK. The four of us in the team. I do offer bespoke service to you to attract landlords and vendors, mainly landlords, to your agency. So do bear that in mind if you want a bigger slice of the pie. Ben, thank you very much for your time today, for your insight. And ladies and gentlemen, more importantly, thank you for watching. We'll see you next week for week 30 of the Property Market Stats Show. At the end of this video, there'll be a whizzy graphic, and at the end, there is a playlist. And if you save that playlist, you will get access to the show around 24 hours in advance before it actually comes live. So bear that in mind if you want the update. Again, I wasn't here last week because of my holiday, my birthday. As I said, I've got my cards here. So thank you very much for everyone with the kind words. Thank you, Ben. Thank you for watching.